Gaby, Cora, and I'm here with Natalia Locatelli, who happens to be my
daughter.
Okay. So here we are talking to you about something that's very important.
We're going to talk to you about some of the things you should probably be talking about with your kids. And because I'm her kid, that's why I'm here.
Well, that was my part. I was going to say that it was very important to talk about this, and I think it's going to be surprising for you that we're coming out and talking about this very important issue, which is about whether or not you chat with your kids about birth control and also protection when they have sex.
Believe it or not, she and I have actually talked about this. So she's not just saying you should talk to your kids, and I have absolutely no idea what she's talking about.
So Natalia's now in her mid-20s, but we started talking earlier, particularly when she started dating.
Mm-hmm. We talked about it even before then, a little bit in high school, just to make sure I knew what was going on. But what happened was when I first started dating, she came to me and she said, "Do you know what you're doing? Do you know how to protect yourself? Do you know what it means to protect yourself?" And this was one of the points that I thought was very interesting. Do you know what your kids think is sex? When I was first talking to my friends in high school, they would tell me, "Oh, oral sex isn't sex. It doesn't count because there's no penetration." And at the time, I was very confused about it because I knew that oral sex has the word sex in it, and yet my friends were treating it as if it was something completely different. So that was one of the first things, was she clarified, okay, do you know what sex means? Do you know how to protect yourself in all of these different cases? And that really helped me a lot, just defining what sex was.
Now, the other thing around sexually transmitted diseases is that most schools will show you some pictures or some videos that will scare the hell out of you. And in my opinion, not only as a doctor, but also as a mental health professional and psychiatrist, I think that sometimes by scaring people too much, we actually don't help them realize what's going on. So they will do some things out of fear, but not out of really understanding. So those are some of the things that we also talked about in terms of sexually transmitted diseases, not only talking about AIDS, but also talking about other problems with HPV or chlamydia infections or many other infections, including gonorrhea. So this was something that we also discussed, and the use of condoms. So there's something we did that was interesting and embarrassing to Natalia, and probably to me too, but why don't you share a little bit of what we did?
Okay, well, this is two parts. So we had our conversation, and it was very helpful and embarrassing. Don't get me wrong, it was embarrassing to talk about sex with my mom, but it was very important to hear about what it was really like. Those movies that she was talking about, we had those in school. I was eating lunch at the time. It was very disgusting. I had to stop eating. And the problem with those movies is that you stop seeing it as sex and you only see it as really horrible consequences for something you can't understand. But the two things that we did was, first of all, she talked to me about birth control pills. So she told me what they were, what they did, how they prevented pregnancy, and what I could expect from them. So that was the first thing. The second thing that we did was we went to our local pharmacy. We went into the condom section and we started talking about them in public, about what they were and how they worked and which ones were better, which ones were worse. And trust me, this was a very disturbing conversation. But it was also really helpful because what ended up happening was I realized how they worked, also how they could break, and what to do in different kinds of situations. In fact, a lot of my friends started coming to me and asking me for advice, not just about condoms, but also birth control pills. They just think, well, I'll take the pill once every week and it'll work, and if I miss a day or two, it doesn't matter because it'll still work. But that's not what happened.
So if you're not in a serious relationship, you should definitely use condoms to protect yourself against any kind of sexually transmitted disease. So that's a rule of thumb. And if you don't know what they look like, go to the pharmacy, look around, go with your friends, go with your mom, do it in a humorous way so that you don't feel alone, but don't just feel ignorant about it. Do something about it so that you can learn. Hey, even I learned out of looking at the different products there and being a little humorous and funny about it too. Now the second part is, and this is something very important in healthcare these days, Sometimes kids or young adults want to start having sexual intercourse. They want to start having a sexual relationship, and they also want to make sure that they don't become pregnant. And one of the problems that we faced was that when we made an appointment for her to be seen by the doctor, Natalia had to wait like 3 months. So at the time, the big question, and again, we know that this is not common for just anyone because you may not happen to have a mom who can prescribe medications. But the idea was, do you want to wait until you see the doctor, or do you need me to prescribe them, and what do you want to do? So this is where you can be really candid and open, and it's not easy. And for parents, you're making it even tougher for kids if you tell them you should not be having sex to begin with. If your kid is going to start having sex, you might as well just help them protect themselves, first of all, with condoms, with barrier kinds of protections first, and also making sure that your girls don't become pregnant. You may want to make sure that they at least have a chance to discuss with their doctors about whether or not to take birth control pills. So,
well, that was very important too, because I've heard about girls who've had to have abortions and have different kinds of problems, and girls who've had pregnancies and they've had kids very young. I'm 24, but I already know people who had kids years ago. And the problem with that is, okay, so you get very nervous and you get very embarrassed talking about these subjects with your parents, let's say for a day or for 2 days, however long it takes you to really discuss the subject. But if you get pregnant, that means you have to talk about these things and think about these things forever. So people are gonna, you can say, oh, well, it's too embarrassing. Guess what? Telling your parents, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant, that's much worse, if that's not what you want.
So the idea is, first of all, protect yourself against any kind of sexually transmitted disease. Once you know you're in a steady relationship, then you can start thinking about additional birth control without any barrier method, but at least, consider the barrier method until you know that you're going steady, and until you know that you're really being very loyal and faithful to one another. You may want to get tested against any kind of sexually transmitted disease before you let the barriers go. So having said this, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we hope we've been able to help you out in exploring your early adulthood as well and as well protected as possible.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.